In the Fuzzy Memories podcast, we celebrate the good, the rad, and the fugly of the 80s and 90s.
We're three latchkey kids who made it out alive.
And in each episode, we break down all the culture that popped, 1 year at a time.
Whether it's the birth of legends...
I'm Lyme disease free today, and I have Whitney Houston and MTV to thank. Or audacious moves.
Imagine also the poor Golden Gate Bridge. You turn 75 and people have a party on you.
Yep. I don't want that.
Or even confusing PSAs.
And the stop, drop, and roll. I mean, I assumed as an adult I would catch on fire weekly.
All the time!
We've got a take that will make you laugh.
We've also got thoughts on all sorts of random phenomena and the most unmitigated of gall.
Why sharks can't be trusted, people can't be trusted, and rivers can't be trusted. It's collusion.
It's of the highest degree.
Uh-huh.
You were counseling me to start my remarks with, first of all, bitch.
Everyone in that room would have snapped to attention.
It's going to be basically coffee lids, shark revenge, and then maybe like Matt Getz. God, we need to do something about him.
Join us every other Wednesday to celebrate the hits, the misses, and the misfits of the weirdest decades.
If I could tell my 14-year-old self from 1990 that I would be eating in a Cheesecake Factory in
Beverly Hills,
I'd be like, we did it. We did it, Joe.
We did it.
Listen and subscribe to Fuzzy Memories on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your favorite podcast platform.
Welcome to Broads and Books, the podcast with one unique theme, 4 handpicked book recommendations, and 2 broads. I'm Amy, a lifelong reader and writer.
And I'm Erin, an avid reader, sometimes writer, and reality TV buff. And this is episode number 1, Feels Like the First Time.
Yeah.
The theme this week is all about firsts. Every week we'll have a new, unique theme, and Amy and I will pick 2 books each that we believe relate to the theme. Since this is our first episode, I have to say it does in fact feel like the first time.
It sure does, Erin. And Erin and I came together because we both love books with what may be an unhealthy passion, but also because we often read very different things. I like to read across literary fiction and sci-fi and history. Erin loves great fiction, humor, and nonfiction, including true crime and business. And in fact, before we talk about the books in Broads and Books, let's spend a little time getting to know the broads of Broads and Books, since this is our first episode.
And we thought a good way to start was maybe talk about a few of our firsts. So I think I'm going to start off with Amy.
Let's do it.
And ask, what is the first book that you remember loving?
Oof. Well, I do remember as a kid reading and enjoying The Monster at the End of this book with Grover.
Classic.
Classic, because, you're on the edge of your seat. It's up and down all throughout.
Best books written.
For sure. Then as I got older and, not necessarily more sophisticated, but different choices, I picked up a lot of what was around the house. And my mom dug some Danielle Steele and some Judith Krantz. And I got to say, for a 9 and a 10-year-old, that's pretty saucy.
Oh.
So, I learned a lot of things.
I'm sure that has served you well.
It's in so many ways in life.
Because Danielle Steele, if there ever
right?
is an author, that's real life right there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, there's, all sorts of good stuff in there. What about you, Erin? What's the first book you remember loving?
Well, ironically, also Monster at the End of this book.
Well,
love that
classic.
book. Yeah. But I remember really, which kind of goes with the true crime theme, falling in love with Nancy Drew books when I was very first reading. We had a set of the very original classics in our house, and I tore through those. And then I remember going to the library and like every version that I could get, because they had a couple different, they had like an in-between version and then a more young adult version, tore through those, which led me to Mary Higgins Clark and just down the line. And so I would say even early on, I kind of had that crime mystery. I really liked that element, but I couldn't get enough. I was the more I could read, the better. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So you started off that way and then it just paved the way.
Snowballed into a real thing.
Yeah, a real thing.
Real thing.
Why don't I ask a question this time?
Oh, all right, yeah.
How about the first time you went to a bookstore?
Oh, my. Okay. Well, there was a bookstore in our mall at the time. It was B. Dalton, which is a subsidiary of Barnes & Noble, which I didn't know that for a long time. That blew my mind when I found out that Barnes & Noble owned B. Dalton.
When you learn about business structure, blows your mind.
Mind blown.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's any B. Daltons left. I think Barnes & Noble decided that was a bad idea.
Yeah, I think you're right. Cannibalizing and whatnot.
Yeah. So there was B. Dalton. I loved that bookstore. In fact, that was my first job, was at B. Dalton, the bookstore. So I remember going in there and just the idea that you could find so many possibilities in one place was just, I remember having that feeling of like, I can't get enough, like insatiable. Like, oh, I want this book and this book and this book and this book, which is never stopped. So,
right.
Yeah.
We're going to get into, how many books you get on a regular basis that come into your home. You've admitted in the past that it's an interesting number. It's a lot.
I mean, I always say it's not crack.
Exactly. It's a habit that is healthy, perhaps.
Yeah.
Way better than crack, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be up there on the list. It's got to be.
Yes. Well, I think the first time I went to a bookstore, I don't really remember a bookstore actually until I went to college, because growing up, we went to the library a lot, or I should say I went to the library a lot. And that was my bookstore. And, the fact that it was free. Hello. Fantastic. So then I go to University of Iowa and they have the bookstore in the IMU, and it's the bookstore that services all the books that you get in college. Again, this is 90s when there were books in college. So there's that. But I also remember walking through and oh my God, I can buy these things and I can have them. And that started a debt problem, I'll be honest.
Right. When you realize you can have it for your own.
Yes.
And you turn that corner into I don't even want the library book anymore because I can't write in it.
Exactly.
I can't keep it.
Yeah.
And I can't add it to my bookshelf.
I want to refer back to this bitch. So,
I never refer back to them, but I want the option.
Exactly. I love the pretty colors on a bookshelf.
I love collecting them.
It's just too bad it also came at the same time as my first credit card offer. And, oh, yikes. Yep.
That's rough.
That's rough. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, anyway. Well, we will ask each other more questions over our first few episodes, and you'll probably get to know a little bit about the weird things and the cool things that make us tick. But
cool,
now,
for
sure. But now, why don't we get to the picks, Erin?
Well, as we mentioned, each week we're going to offer a couple of fiction recommendations as well as some other genres. We'll even throw in a recommendation from outside the book world, too.
Yeah.
Things we're into right now in pop culture, whatever it may be. We choose our picks based on this week's theme, and you'll find that they can be new releases or they could be older, perhaps undiscovered gems. We like to think that our picks will always be a little bit unexpected.
Just like us.
Yes. If there's anything you can say about me definitively, it's unexpected.
Unexpected. Yes.
Good or bad, up to you.
Well, why don't I go first?
Yeah.
So this week we are thinking of firsts in multiple ways. So for fiction, my pick is called The Marriage of a Thousand Lies by S.J. Sindhu. So here's the story. She's a first-generation Sri Lankan American woman, and she's married to a first-generation Indian American man. But from the very first chapter, you realize this is a marriage solely of convenience. Because they are both gay and they are closeted, and both have very traditional immigrant families who have made it very clear that being gay is super not cool. So Lucky, the main character, she's in her late 20s and she heads home. Her grandmother has fallen ill, so she's going to help with that. And she runs into her best friend, who was her first love. So they were caught at the time. Things went into disarray. And since they've thrown themselves into appearing that they are straight for their families. So lots and lots of complications ensue. And I picked it this week because this is the first novel for S.J. Sindhu, who is herself a Sri Lankan American woman. And I think this is one of, if not the first big press novel that sort of deals with difference when it's multiplied. And what I mean by that is, like, Lucky is a lesbian and she's brown, so she's an other, and I'm putting that in sort of quotations, in this world of, white American society. And she's also a different person, an other to her immigrant community and family. So I think sometimes it's hard enough to get a story published when you're one or the other, if you're, if you're gay or you're brown or a minority in some way. So having both of those is pretty huge. And in fact, I heard an interview from the author in which she said, that was a big problem. That was a big issue I had to surmount. Because people will be like, okay, she's already a minority. She's already brown. Do we have to make her gay too? That kind of thing. Yeah.
As if they're deciding. Yeah.
Exactly.
If we could mold you, we'd like you to be different.
Yes. Yeah. And really, I mean, life is not one thing. So let's be real, people.
Right.
And what's great about the book is, she writes just beautifully. The story flows. It's really, really nice. And in fact, I wanted to read one quote because this shows just how she's describing what it's like to be closeted. And she says, most people think the closet is a small room. They think you can touch the walls, touch the door, turn the handle, and walk free. But when you're inside it, the closet is vast. No walls, no door, just empty darkness stretching the length of the world.
Ooh, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
boom is right. Put that on a bookmark.
So not only does our author here write really well, she takes on all this weighty stuff and she just makes it into a really compelling story that's really beautifully done. And I think this could be devoured quickly if you're reading it, but it could also be something you linger over and you savor a little bit. So really great story about complexity and difference, and highly recommend.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, ironically, we sort of picked two books in the same vein.
And I think this is going to happen more than we account for.
Yes, I agree. And to be fair, we didn't know what each other was picking.
No, we didn't.
So,
and that's another thing maybe to emphasize, is that we're surprising one another. We are coming here.
Unexpected.
Unexpected.
There you go.
Yes.
So my first fiction pick, it was published in June of 2017, so it's not a super new release, but it's called The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Seven Husbands. So I read this book last summer and absolutely fell in love with the main character. The premise is kind of this actress at the end of her life. She'd be kind of from the old Hollywood era. And she has decided that now is the time to get her memoir out there and tell everyone everything that they've never known. Her life has been very publicized, but very specifically manipulated by her and her publicist as to what was told. So she has had 7 husbands, and she picks this very unknown journalist from a failing magazine to write her memoir and says, you come here, you get to write it, you get money from it, whole deal. So it starts out, the structure is structured around the idea that you're going to learn the story about each of the 7 husbands, how it came. Well, right away at the beginning, you learn that in reality, she is a lesbian, and the 7 husbands were sort of this cover and what role they played throughout her life, of some of them knowing, some of them not knowing, some of them being complicit in it and helping her. Super fascinating story. The structure's amazing. I have read some interviews with the author, and because there are likenesses to some famous actresses from that kind of time period. And she said she did kind of use stories from all of them and maybe make one character. But other than that, it's not, it's a fiction. But the other thing I loved about the story, besides that part being compelling, was there's a little bit of a mystery element to it that gets revealed at the end. So the twists and turns were unexpected, to use the word of the day, but well done. I mean, it didn't feel like it was cheap or for the, just for the ending or to make you think, oh, geez, I didn't see that coming. They really fit with the story, and you really love the complexity of her as a character, because there are times where you absolutely despise her. Mm-hmm. Some of the action she did, the way she stepped on people. And then there are times where you can't feel anything but empathy, because kind of the same as your character, just living in this world where she knows she's not being her true self, but she would be sacrificing so much to be that person. So it's a great read. It reads really fast. And it just was a really, really interesting take on kind of that time period. It's an interesting take on relationships. And it's definitely the complexity of the characters is what I think really drives this book and really made me love it. One of the quotes, I was going to read a quote too, and I like this one particularly. She says this to the journalist that's writing her story. It's always been fascinating to me how things can be simultaneously true and false, how people can be good and bad all in one, how someone can love you in a way that is beautifully selfless while serving themselves ruthlessly.
Oof.
Right?
She sounds like someone I want to read about and I want to know.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of badass.
You do. Yeah. She does have a very badass quality, but like a lot of badasses, they have that edge where you're like, man, I want to just wholeheartedly love you, but what's going on here? What is this?
What is this over here?
So it was a fantastic read. So
awesome. You mentioned structure. What's cool about the structure?
The structure specifically, because the story it's linear in fashion, but it's really designed to take you from husband to husband.
Gotcha.
Like, this is what happened with this husband. And then she fills in all the details around how that happened. And each chapter is named after, or each section is named after the husband, but there's like little words to describe them beforehand. And I won't reveal that because that's part of the fun of the structure. Yeah. So it just in that alone was intriguing enough to read it. But then the story itself is so complex and so interesting that, I really enjoyed it. So
that's fascinating that we both chose books with a somewhat closeted main character.
I know. For first.
So
the reason that I chose it as the first is because as the main character of the book, she was one of the first people in old Hollywood to admit this, and maybe not openly, but to her publicist. She was out there with it. And so there's that kind of in the first thought process, kind of being a pioneer. Secondly, her first husband plays a huge role in shaping how this whole story gets played out. And Monique is the first person to actually hear the whole story in its entirety. She has never told anybody all of the details so that they all connect correctly. Okay. Everybody in her life's only known certain pieces until this person. So she's kind of the first person to get all the information. So
interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was a good pick for first.
Yeah.
It's a winner.
Yeah. Well, that kind of presents a quandary in my mind, because I imagine that as we keep doing our podcasts, like, I want to read that book now, but it just adds to my reading list. And
that's okay with me. I love to add my reading list.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. It's unachievable at this point.
For sure.
I think I did the math and it's just out of control. But
I don't think Goodreads has helped with that either, because you can keep adding things to your want to read, and then you just get like, well, shit, like there's way too many things in here.
Yeah, and it's really fed a problem for me, because I found this website called Thrift Books that sells used books.
Oh dear.
And you can get free shipping if you spend $10.
Oh,
and
Erin.
you can spend $10 like in a day, in an hour, in a minute. And so and then I go on Goodreads. I'm like, oh yeah, that one. Oh, that's on there. That's So yeah, it really creates a problem. Real problem.
Again, it could be crack. So
right, yeah. I say problem in the sense that it seems to be a problem for other people.
Definitely not you.
For me. I in no way feel the need to change this. Have taken no action steps to do so.
Can you imagine if there was a book intervention? I mean, would that be a reality TV show you would watch? Because, you admitted to being a reality TV buff.
Absolutely not. I would never support that. Are you kidding me? No.
It might give your family ideas. You don't want that happening.
Yeah, and I'm not going to support people telling people that they have too many books, read too many books, want to read too many books.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's not the message of this podcast, just so you know. No. Read all the books you want. Keep adding to that list.
Yes,
that's
you should
what
add
we're
these
doing.
Books to your list.
Indeed.
Right now, get on Goodreads, do it.
Yep.
It's okay. Pull over if you're listening to this in the car.
That's right.
We'll take a minute for you.
Yeah.
Put it on your Goodreads list.
And also know that, we are making that easy for you with the social media presences that we are going to refer to later. So boom, there you go.
So if you don't want to pull over right now, say you're in traffic.
Yeah, good
understandable.
Point. Yeah.
Go to our website later. You can find the recommendations, and then you can order them right then for you from wherever you get your books.
Wherever
Yeah.
you get those books, including the library. We still support libraries.
We do.
As much as we
do.
talk about buying books,
We do.
We are at a point in our lives where
Absolutely.
this was a dream.
Yes.
Yeah.
All we're asking is for you to do it legally. That's it. I don't know how you would do it illegally, but shoplifting, don't do that.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. We don't condone shoplifting.
If you need to borrow a copy, I'll give you one.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
have to promise to give it back, or I will break your legs.
Yes.
But,
yeah. I'm glad we've put that out there
Yeah.
from our very first episode.
Yeah.
Feels like the first time. Feels like the first time Erin threatened to break our listeners'
Won't be
legs.
the last.
Okay, on that note, we will now move to some more picks. Yeah. So I think like Erin mentioned, we'll usually focus on fiction as our first two picks because that's probably our most preferred reading area.
Absolutely.
But we also read widely in other genres, so we want to cover that as well when we make some picks. So for an other genre pick, I have chosen a collection of short stories called Friday Black, by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. And I apologize if I mispronounced that.
It sounded great.
Thank you. Yeah. So, Friday Black. Let me just say that this kind of blew my mind. I had such an enjoyable reading experience with this book. And in each of these stories, and I think this is hard to do in a story collection too, but in each of these stories, there's something real. It starts with something that you know, something that you've seen. That could be like how crazy Black Friday gets every year.
Oh, okay.
It could be the headlines about young Black kids getting shot down by police. So it could be across the board, something you are familiar with. And then in each story, that thing that you know is taken to this crazy sort of conclusion. So it could be Black Fridays in which retail workers pile dead bodies in the corner as they keep selling down jackets because they got to make that quota. Damn it.
Well, yeah, dead body's not going to stop you.
Hell no. Or it could be a theme park that lets white adults pretend to be homeowners who protect what's theirs by gunning down Black park employees. This is legit a story in this collection, and it was incredible. Yeah, Erin's got a look on her face that's just like I don't know what to say to that. Yeah. Okay, so why I chose it this week? I think first of all, this is the first work by this author, and holy crap! I mean, I'm gonna keep reading whatever he writes. And also, I love a good dystopian, sci-fi, Black Mirror-esque type thing. And in fact, one of my first loves as a reader was The Handmaid's Tale. And I read it way too young. Really missed a lot of the nuance, I think. I was just drawn in by like, oh, crap, there's prostitution of some sort. And what's happening? Yeah. But in my mind, and what I love about that is that it's sort of the epitome of creating a world that isn't so crazy, like it's based in some way on something you know or something that's happened in the past. And then the author uses that as a way to comment on who we are, where we are, all that good stuff. That's the power of good sci-fi in my mind. And Friday Black is the first in this vein that I've read in a really long time that just kicked my ass. Like it was so good.
I like that phrase.
Yeah, kicked
in
my
reference
ass.
to a book. I love it. Love it.
Good. We'll keep using that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, please do.
Good. And what's even better about this is the author's writing is so cool. It's very spare. It's very short in a lot of ways. Some of the stories are only a few pages. One of the final stories is like 30-some, but you don't feel it. You just fly through it. And it's the kind of writing that's sort of deceptive. Like you don't realize until you're pulled into the story. And then when you look back, you're like, good Lord, that sentence, that was crazy. That was a good damn sentence, that kind of thing. And I don't know about you, Erin, but when I read a collection, whether it's a story collection or an essay collection, sometimes I have to force myself to just read one at a time.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I want to, sort of sit with it for a minute. I really had to force myself this time.
Oh, I'm sure.
But when I did, I kept thinking of each of those stories until the next time that I opened it again. Oh. So it was each one was its own sort of realized world. It was so done well, and you're just sort of haunted. You're laughing at some points at dead bodies in the corner on Black Friday.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So highly recommend.
Oh, sounds fantastic. Well, mine's a bit of a departure from that, so we're not similar on this one.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
Yeah. So mine is also a nonfiction. Well, it's a little combo, but it's a humor and essay collection category. Okay. So I picked it for the first because it's this particular author's first book.
Okay.
It was published in June of 1994.
Oh.
Yes, and it is Barrel Fever by David Sedaris. So I'm a huge David Sedaris fan. I had the opportunity to see him perform live a couple years ago. Got my book signed. Amazing. Ugh. He's even better in person than he is on the page.
Really?
But, so great. Yeah. So great.
Wow, that's good to know.
Yeah, it was well worth whatever the ticket price was. If he's around you, you should go see him. But he generally writes essays taken out of his own life, humor, and then puts a humorous slant on them. So on their face, they're just entertaining. But a lot of times, like you said with the short stories, if you just sit with it for a while, you can see that there was a deeper message about himself or society or something he's learned. But in this book, he also has a couple of short stories that he wrote. So there is some fiction in here. He's generally known for nonfiction.
That's interesting. I didn't know he wrote short fiction.
He does have a few in here. But the main one that is in this book, and also why I picked it for first, is an essay called The Santaland Diaries, which he became very famous for. He read it for the first time on NPR's Morning Edition, which kind of launched him into being a commentator and part of his career. But the idea of this book is that he was legitly an elf in a big department store around Christmas, like worked in with Santas in the North Pole.
Kind of retail connection. Yeah.
Retail connection. And it's all about what he saw and, kind of what you would expect, like a, mall Santa / elf. Unbelievable. I mean, I laughed so hard I cried at different spots. And I also picked it as a first because this really speaks to me. I love humor. I love comedy. I love well-written comedy. That's tough to say.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a tongue twister.
Yeah, I saw the look on your face.
Yeah,
it was like,
oh
man, God, how do I do this?
Whoa, new words. Well-written comedy. I'm going to work on that in the mirror. But this is the first time that I really felt like it was entertainment, but there was also a purpose to it.
Yeah.
And for someone that loves to read that and sometimes writes that, it was really eye-opening. I really enjoyed it. And I have read everything by him since and will continue to. But this particular book, I think, is a great start to him if you've never read anything by him. It gives you a really good flavor of his kind of take on things, and also his short stories are great. One of them is about a dad who is very frugal, wants to save money, and one of his kids needs to have an operation. And the more that the dad hears about it, he's like, well, I could do that. That's no problem.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So does a deep dive into figuring out how he could do this as a money-saving proposition. Yes.
Okay.
But believe it or not, hilarity ensues. So
shocking.
Yes. So I love it for all those reasons. That's why I chose it as a first. He's a great writer. He's a fantastic humorist, both in person when he's commentating on things, but also in the written word. It has done a great job of really bringing that, I think, to the forefront and getting it in a new generation.
Yeah. That is so rare that he could translate that to the stage, too.
Yes.
Like, be able to do both. I remember seeing a clip of him reading his essay on Stadium Pal on David Letterman. Have you ever? Yeah. And just, he knows how to deliver his material.
Yes.
It's really great.
He does have great delivery. So I do have one line. You'd have to be blind, deaf, and dumb not to know what you're getting yourself into. So if there's blame yourself. Which is so typical line for him. Fantastic.
I want you to cross stitch that into, if you got to blame yourself.
I like it.
Yeah.
You're going to assign blame. Fine. On you. I'll get to that after I figure out how to say well-written comedy.
Exactly. Yeah. Baby steps. It's all good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good pick. That sounds great. So I think one other thing that we're going to try to do each week is not just limit ourselves to books, Erin. We're going to branch out because we are multifaceted people. We enjoy things across culture and, whatever you might call things that maybe are a little lowbrow. I don't know. We don't care about lowbrow, highbrow.
Lowbrow, highbrow, midbrow.
Yeah.
However you wear your brows is fine.
Yeah. Kind of sounds like mid-rise jeans, and those are Terrible.
Are those mom jeans? Is that what that is?
Those are the ones that hit you right in the middle of the gut. So you got both like a bottom and a top muffin. It's
what
real
are,
sexy.
Who wanted those?
I don't know, but somehow there was a story in someone's mind that this is what's demanded.
Right.
This is what the ladies want, Erin.
I feel like that's a lot of products. I think, where was the meeting where someone said, this is my idea, and somebody else was like, that's a joke, right?
I imagine there were no women in this room.
Obviously.
Yeah,
this is the perfect spot to have jeans hit. That will feel so comfortable and so flattering.
It's so much better than low rise where you can't wear any underwear. I mean, really, jeans. Ladies' jeans, everyone. Just bad.
Rough.
Bad news. Yeah. On that note.
Yeah.
So as we said, we're going to talk about other picks of things that we're enjoying.
Yes.
TV, movies, music, all sorts of things. So my pick this week is a movie. And for our listeners at home or in the car, we are recording this at work. Yes. Anywhere you listen.
No judgment.
To your podcasts. In the shower, whatever you got going.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
can't imagine this is a good soundtrack for running, but if it is, good on you.
Hey, yeah. I mean, I hope that we're powering you on then. I mean, get it, girl.
Harder. Go. Yeah. Took a turn.
It really did.
Okay.
Yeah, let me veer us back.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
We are recording this in the first full week, you might say, of 2019. And if you follow movies, you may have heard about the movie The Favorite, starring Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz. And ultimately, my recommendation there is to go see that movie. It is ridiculous and absurd and wonderful, and I enjoyed it so much. But instead of talking about that one, I wanted to talk about that director's first English language movie, and that is called The Lobster. And the director I'm talking about is Yorgos Lanthimos. He's a Greek filmmaker. And so, yes, his first English language movie was The Lobster. And remember how I talked about sci-fi and fantasy and how I love that, it can take real things to an absurd conclusion. Well, then hold on, everyone, if you haven't seen The Lobster. Colin Farrell is a man whose wife has left him, which, first off, that sentence, I've never heard that before. I had a major crush on Colin Farrell. I'll be honest.
You?
Yeah,
okay.
I did.
All right. Yeah. I picture him as always playing that kind of brooding guy. So I'm like, is it surprising that someone left him?
Well, in this one, he's a little heavier.
Okay.
He's not that brooding guy. He's not Colin Farrell as we know him.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
He's a poor schmo of a man.
Oh. Well, I'm sorry for you, Colin
I know
Farrell.
Colin Farrell. I'm sorry, buddy. Yeah.
That took a turn.
Ooh. But in this society, you have to be partnered. So he's shipped off to a transition facility, and he has to choose a new partner in 45 days, or he will be transformed into an animal, a lobster. Yeah. Let that sink in.
That's pressure.
So it's weird, and it gets weirder, because it turns out there's a sub-society of loners, people who refuse to partner, and they hide out in the woods. And they have a lot of silent raves. That's the kind of thing where you have your headphones in and you're just listening to music and you're just dancing it out.
Oh.
In the middle of this whole huge group of people that are all dancing it out to their own tunes. So that's what these loners do.
That sounds actually like a rave I could handle.
But then the partnered people, they hunt the loners for sport. So, yeah. I mean,
my gosh.
If you've never seen anything by this man is a weirdo and I love him. All sorts of craziness ensues, as you might expect.
Yeah.
People in the transition facility, they're vying with each other to find their best mate. They go to crazy lengths to prove themselves a match. One guy repeatedly hits himself in the head so that he will have nosebleeds, like the girl that often has nosebleeds that he kind of has a crush on. Okay.
Well, yeah, nothing's going to bind you
right?
like a little blood from the nose.
You got it. Constantly banging yourself in the nose.
I mean, that's what I looked for.
Yeah. Yeah, is that how you and Mike got together?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
No, I mean, I don't have nosebleeds, but I assume that if he were willing to hit himself in the nose multiple times, I don't think I could have said no.
Oh, buddy. Mike, you heard it here, so hopefully you fall in line with that. But in this movie, when Colin Farrell's character escapes and he runs to the woods, crazier stuff happens. And so I love this movie because it's super absurd, obviously, but it's highly entertaining, and it's got a really interesting, like, fascinating theme in there. I think our society values coupledom so much. I mean, just look at the marriage industry, the wedding industry, all the reality shows about getting married or being married or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so this movie talks about, like, what really makes a match, and is it liking the same things? Is it having the same wounds? Is it all based on something wrong? And when it comes down to it, so very, very interesting. And I found myself thinking about it quite a bit afterwards.
It does sound fascinating. Lots of layers in that one.
You and Mike better go home and watch it, and then test him. Just see, hey, would you give yourself nosebleeds for me, baby?
And I think he would say yes.
Yeah,
just how are you going to say no at this? Yeah,
or maybe to get out of the conversation.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
this is the exit.
Yep.
Elevator down.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Oh,
yeah.
dear. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad this was our first Mike reference, and we really just laid it out there for him.
We did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly. I was going to say something else, and that was self-control.
Wow.
You just saw it happen.
I sure did.
Self-control.
I saw all the calculations in your face and in your head, and then you just pulled it back. Yeah.
That is a filter at work. That's like a rare gazelle sighting.
Oh, my God, yeah. Erin with a filter, like a rare gazelle.
Nobody wants that. All right. Well, my non-pick sort of goes in my, vein of my true crime thing.
Oh, yeah.
But it relates to First because this is the first podcast that I ever listened to regularly.
Oh.
That I decided, I can't miss this.
Oh.
And it's often about First in the field of crime. It's called Criminal, and it's a podcast produced by Radiotopia. And it's hosted by Phoebe Judge, and they're 20, 25, sometimes 30 minutes long, and they deal with some aspect of crime. So, for example, one of the episodes was about the man who came up with the idea for the witness protection program.
Oh.
The actual case that it came out of, how he set it up, what he intended it to be, and fascinating because I never knew it was invented basically by one guy that had this problem and figured this was how to solve it. So that was a great one. There's another episode about people that donate their bodies to this particular type of science that puts them in various places to decompose so that they can study it for homicides. So when you find a body, you can say, well, clearly it's been here this long because this, and this has happened.
Whoa.
So this scientific, director is the head of this area where he's got maybe a body decomposing in a pond and out in a field in the sun. And people actually donate their bodies to this endeavor.
That's really fascinating.
It was, that was actually a two-parter. It was very interesting.
Also, what does that guy talk about when he comes home from work?
Right. And if you're his friend, is there a pressure there? Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Listen, we need to draw boundaries of our friendship right now.
You're not putting my body in a field.
Nope.
It's not going to happen.
No.
Yeah. And
spouse too. You got to draw those lines.
Yeah. He did mention that there were people that wanted to do that. And when it came down to it, their spouse, kids, whoever was left was like, I just can't imagine allowing this to happen. But they really wanted it in pursuit of science and, why not? But you can see why a loved one might say, that doesn't seem right. Yeah. So that one was great. There was another episode, a ride along with a Texas police officer, which I loved. And then one that sticks out to me a lot was a stay-at-home mom turned private investigator. She investigated a crime that had happened in her family and wreaked havoc. And turns out she had a knack for it and now does it. She only takes on a couple cases a year, and she's incredibly sought after.
Wow.
I mean, people want her to work the case, and she handpicks the ones she does, and she works them. That one was really interesting as well. So what I like about it is they take a really different approach to it. It's not just a crime story. It's all aspects from, all angles. They're quick. They come out every other week, I believe. So I really enjoy it. If you're interested in it, you can go to thisiscriminal.com and it'll tell you all the places you can find that podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's probably on there. But their website also features a unique illustration every week of the story. So that somehow relates to their theme that week.
Decomposing?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Cool.
Sometimes they can be morbid, but it's kind of interesting from an art perspective.
Right. I'm
So-
not saying it's a bad thing. Just,
No.
Yeah.
I'll be perfectly honest. I don't always look at the drawings. I'm more fascinated by the podcast, but if that's your thing,
Get it.
it's another angle to enjoy it.
Yeah. How many seasons? Or do they do seasons? Or how
No,
does that
they
work?
just
Okay.
kind of roll
Yeah.
week, each week. There
Okay.
not really a seasonality to it.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's been, they usually take a break around, Christmas to
Mm-hmm.
the New Year. They took like 4 weeks off, and they're produced pieces. So it's not a live, she goes out, does the interviews. They
Wow.
choose what to put in it. So I really enjoy it as a podcast and as a show. And it always brings about something I've never heard of before. So, and that I probably wouldn't have come across in any other way. I certainly wouldn't Google where bodies decompose. So,
if you do, the NSA might have their eye on you.
yeah, I have a Google alert set for bodies decomposing.
Yeah.
So,
Sure. Who
yeah.
doesn't, really?
You just got to have that information.
Yeah. Want to know what's happening out there in the world.
Well, yeah, I don't want to be stumbling across a body unexpectedly.
No. But actually, do you? Because then you'd be part of a mystery. You could be like that first scene in a Law and Order episode.
Oh, yeah. If I'm going to go crime, I don't want Law and Order. I want a longer...
Oh,
yeah,
like a making
feature.
of a murderer kind of thing? Okay,
I want my own show
Sure.
that lasts as many episodes as I feel necessary.
Damn straight.
Because Law and Order, it's going to get wrapped up.
You're right.
And let's be honest, if I'm not Olivia Benson, I probably did it
Yeah.
if it's Law and Order. So
That's
I
probably
don't want to be
true.
that guy.
No. That's good. I'm glad we have these clear life goals for you and your true crime that is just waiting to come out. You heard it here
man.
first.
And this actually sounds like something that would be used against me. Should I be
We
implicated?
may have not thought through all the implications of having a podcast and
Yeah.
talking about some
Yeah.
of these things that we often talk about unrecorded.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think about.
Oh, yikes. Okay, well, hopefully we'll have another episode after this. We may have some thinking to do. Who
might.
knows?
We might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we do, we completed our first episode.
I know. How great is that?
And yes, and if we decide that this is, something we actually want to do without implicating ourselves, you can look forward to a new episode featuring books and, of course, us two broads every other week.
Yes, and in the meantime, you can head to our website, broadsandbooks.com, to check out all the recommendations we made in this episode, as well as one bonus pick.
Bonus.
Right. Each episode, we're going to pick one extra pick that is only on our website. Incentive. That's what that is.
It's on the interwebs, and you got to get there to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can also check out our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Give us feedback. Check out what we're doing. Let us know items you might want to hear us talk about in future episodes.
Or if you are the creative type and have a great idea for a future theme or episode, let us know that too. You can find links to all our social media accounts and our email at broadsandbooks.com.
And we are so excited to kick this off. We are so excited to hear from you. Excited to be back with you every other week. And until next time, that is it for us.
Happy reading.
I'm up again. Same night, another dream. Before trying this recording thing, I didn't remember much of anything of these dreams. I didn't remember much from any of the women. And one night of doing this, and it's broken things open. The dreams they're in me, and they're coming out of me, and
Talk to me. I am not broken. I am the most whole, most real.
Cause their despair. I wait for the word. Witch.
Look at the mad woman in her cage. She was a woman with holes inside her. That was the heaviest factor, the final evidence, the heart of the issue.
Somehow, you understand this. You hear me. Wherever you are, whatever this is,
this isn't a dream journal anymore. It's not. It's just fact. Because now this is some sort of record. What are these dreams? Maybe there's a better question. Who are these women? Weird Woman is a Broads and Books production. All 9 episodes are available January 10th. Listen and subscribe to Weird Woman on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your favorite podcast platform. That's WYRD Woman, wherever you listen to podcasts.